Greetings, weary traveler. Come, warm yourself by the fire, and let us regale you with mighty tales, tales of adventure, tales of heroism, and of course, tales of Tamriel. I am LotusOfDoom giving your introduction, because Ark has, well, subdued himself to the Nahaten flu at this point, I guess. He is very under the weather, and as a result, he foolishly left me in charge. Luckily, HyperPixie is here as well.
Hi guys.
How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic.
As you can probably tell from anybody that might be here for the live version, we are actually not on the official Tales Twitter. Twitter. Well, we're not on that either. We're not on the official Tales Twitch this evening, mainly because, how can I put this? I didn't plan this out very well because, you know, dumpster fires and all that stuff that we're known for. Well, because of that, I don't have the login to the network for our live show. So we've got that going for us.
I just so happen to have a dual cam set up for a dual stream segment that I do every Thursday, so we were able to get this up pretty quick, and so this is improvisation in progress.
To be fair, much more efficient than me trying to immediately make a background image and then split the cams and everything else. That was going to be kind of sort of rough.
Yeah, our backdrop right now for the audio listeners is just my in-game house.
Yes, which is a little more Aldmeri than I care for, but you know, we'll make do for the evening.
This is what happens when Ark isn't here.
Yes, I was going to say, it started by Ag letting us be in control, then Ark letting me be in control, which we all know is a huge mistake. But, you know, we've got a show for you. We're determined to keep things going, be more consistent, at least with giving a show when it's available. Luckily, it's kind of a slow news week, but we figured we still wanted to chat with everybody for a little while, give you something to listen to during the week, as things are going to be getting pretty hectic with the Vegas event coming up as well. And the Skyrim hype is still quite real.
Yes.
All right, so we will start off with let's see, what's the best thing we can do? All right, so you know what, we'll just keep this in the normal format as usual. We're going to give our sincerest condolences to Ark because he's dead.
I will send flowers over to him in Turkey.
Well, so that's the best. Well, hopefully for anybody who might happen to see this live, since Ark isn't feeling up to a show or anything, he had the fever, so he's not in the greatest of shape. It seemed like that was best that he gets some rest, especially because this is pretty early in the morning for him. So if you want to send him something to cheer him up, send him Guar memes on Twitter.
He likes those.
He loves those. Which he'll need to edit this, so he will most likely edit that out of the recorded version. But for those of you who are live, that'll at least be something that he can look forward to.
And the only thing he loves more than Guar memes is Aldmeri Dominion propaganda. Just saying. Exactly.
He also loves that. All right, so moving on, let's see, what's the best way to do this? Well, we might as well address the news that we have. Pixie, do you have that in the notes? Does that link work?
I am going to open that up now.
Hopefully it does.
It does. I see it. The Crown Store Showcase.
Oops. There we go. All right. So, Crown Store, I mean, there's the monthly Crown Store, but there's varying degrees of things that you can buy. I don't know. Does anything stand out to you? I mean, we usually do a quick recap, but not too involved. Anything that stood out to you prior to? Because yes. I saw something that stood out to me, but it's for a different reason than the purchasable thing itself, which I'll go into afterwards. So
I think it's the same thing stood out to me, which is the Abner Tharn bust, and it talks to you. And I want it so bad, and I need to have it. There's only 1 day left on it, so I need to get it, like, now, and forgot to buy Crown, so that has to be a thing soon. The other thing that I really liked is, I mean, I was really happy with pretty much everything on it. I liked the motif. There's a whole bunch of Midyear Mayhem style things, so I'm guessing they're going to do that at the beginning of the year again. Exactly,
which was my thing of note.
You were going to skip right over Papa Abner?
I actually, yes. I've heard that he speaks to you, too, if you activate him. That's pretty entertaining, I'm not gonna lie. I don't know if I want to be insulted in my own castle, but we'll, you know.
I do. I love his sarcasm, so I have to have him. I also noticed that they have a new mount, the Scorched Alley Howler, which essentially looks like a leaner version of the Direwolves, which I actually really liked this mount. I don't think I'm going to pick it up this time, but I'm assuming they're going to have more skins for this in the future. So I'd like to see what this looks like on whenever other people run around with it. And so I'm excited about that one.
No, I definitely think you're right as well, because they usually don't just release a single version of something. I mean, that's actually kind of a lot of work for a single asset. If you do just have one version of a thing or take it out of the store and then never bring it back, it's kind of like, well, it's a lot of work for just a one-time attempt.
Right.
What was it? The other thing that I wanted to just mention, this is weird because we don't usually spend quite this much time on Crown Store stuff, but at the same time, there are a couple pretty neat things. The dragon statue.
That one is cool.
Yes, that's pretty neat. I like that. That's definitely pretty cool. I'm not a huge cosmetics person, but I could see people doing some very, very cool things with that in their houses, especially more of the housing mancer types that already pull off some pretty amazing stuff with what they're given. That one specifically looks very cool. But that does bring me back specifically to the Midyear Mayhem-based things. The wolf head thing, the Pelinel, I'm trying to find the exact name for it, other than this vague, poor description that I have of it.
Star-Made Wolf's Head?
There it is, Star-Made Wolf Head. So, as everyone that's been around for a while would know, that comes around each and every Midyear Mayhem. In the article, which is, again, not so much the point of the article, but they make a couple reference points to Midyear Mayhem being a thing, which looks like we're probably going to have Midyear Mayhem at the start of the year, which is kind of weird, but I'm fine with it. It's okay. Like, there's no big deal. Like, I'm certainly not going to complain because it is my favorite of the events. But that does bring me to a note that is kind of interesting because they are kicking things off in a similar fashion to before, where it's been confirmed that the Undaunted event is coming back and Midyear Mayhem are both hitting in January. So we are starting the year with 2 events.
Yes.
So it seems like the events are still going to be pretty intense, unless this is just because the only thing to note is Undaunted was not meant to be here. That is them doing what they can to make amends for the dungeon finder problems that happened. And I know, myself included, I really like the Undaunted event, but people love the Undaunted event. As much as Midyear Mayhem's my favorite event, a lot of people, Undaunted is their favorite event.
Mine.
Yours? Okay,
yeah.
There you go. Exactly. So that's good. And as I do constantly make the joke that Midyear, beginning here, Mayhem, well, it never used to be here. That got switched last year, and it seems like it's just kind of staying here for the time being. So both of these events aren't really where they're supposed to be. But it is what it is. The only thing that I am slightly concerned about, just from a greedy standpoint of it directly impacts me and not the majority of people, is if either of these are when we're in Vegas, I'm going to be pretty sad.
Same. I can't remember when they said. Have they announced dates for Undaunted?
I was trying to read through everything, and either I totally missed it, which is not beyond the scope of possibility. But I don't believe they've said the exact dates of them yet. Just simply that January. Like, I think that's as detailed as it got, was January. Which they haven't announced it yet. They're starting to need to announce it if it's not going to be like the day before where they're like, hey, what's up? It's Undaunted time or Midyear Mayhem time, especially because Midyear has a tendency to last a bit longer, at least in previous years. So we'll, kind of see what we're looking at. And actually, just since it just happened, we might as well shout out the fact, our channel or not, was it Ninja Monkey that just hit us with a raid?
Yes, thank you so much for the raid, Ninja Monkey. I really appreciate that. We're recording a podcast right now, so we won't be as responsive as usual to chat. But thank you so much, and I really appreciate you.
Yes, welcome. Thank you all for stopping by. So I'm excited that I get Midyear Mayhem and that we're all going to get the Undaunted event, but at the same time, I hope this doesn't squish everything even more because they will be doing so many things to maintenance and everything like that with the improvement plan coming up. I would like things to be able to breathe a little better than it got at the end of last year where it really got smushed up. But, hopefully things work out well, and I'm excited for Midyear Mayhem regardless of when it happens to be, So I'm like in the same vein as you, but for the Undaunted. So Midyear Mayhem is always the one that I just kind of try to just get to the cities and safely hope that I come across other PvEers and the daily delves over there so that way I can get the drops from it and everything. So I remember, like, I'll jump up and down to signal, hey, I'm not going to hit you. I don't know how to beat you. And then I'll start playing the loot, and if they dance back to my loot playing, I know we're cool, and then we'll wait for the boss and the delve to spawn, and then we're okay. But the Undaunted event is my favorite. I was a little bit bummed whenever it got pushed back, but I understand that server loads like that are really difficult to test for. Yes.
And I think we talked about that last week, how it's not something we can really plan for. So I'm really, really hoping everything goes smoothly this time. I feel like they should really have a handle on it at this point since they're like, yes, definitely it'll work this time. So I'm really excited to have a working Undaunted event, but I also don't want to jinx them, so knock on wood.
Right.
So I do worry about them being squished up, but I'm hoping this is a one-off because they do have a tendency to listen to their community, and I know a lot of us were feeling a lot of event burnout. So I think this is just because 2 events got moved. I will say that if they do want to keep Midyear Mayhem in January, that they should probably change the name to something else.
Yeah, that would be great. I'm sure there's another lore piece that they could use that doesn't actually involve it being called Midyear Mayhem. To be fair, I would love it, and it's this is from at least the perspective of I love pretty much all aspects of the game. I will play whatever. But it's undeniable that in PvE we get substantially more love than we do in PvP. I mean, no one I think will deny that. That's just how it is, which is... It's fine because you need to produce new content in PvE to keep people going. Otherwise it gets stale, you get too good at stuff. PvP, you just kind of need to provide the environment for people to make their own game out of.
Right.
So there's more... You can get more gameplay out of less product, so to speak, if you really want to make it cut and dry. But at the same time, the updates, you can tell the attention isn't there for PvP the same way it is for PvE. As for you, ESP, Morningstar Madness, I'm okay with that. That would be great.
That sounds fantastic to me.
I love that. That's great. So go with that. But I wouldn't be opposed to, just since so much of events in general are based around PvE as well, turn it into a bi-yearly thing. have one in January, just keep it there. Morningstar Madness, obviously, as we've just confirmed, it's canon. And then have Midyear Mayhem come July or whatever. That way it gives, a little diversity for the most part, but at the same time, it almost twists people's arm that don't play PvP into at least testing it out. And if you play on the main servers or during big time, you never really have population problems, but when Midyear Mayhem hits and everybody floods those servers for double AP, and obviously their gift box and everything like that, I mean, they're opening new servers, everybody's pop locked, it turns into a disaster, and I love it, personally, because as we mentioned last time, I don't pretend that, like, oh, I'm the best at PvP. I just like Zerg fights. They're tons of fun. I love the chaos of it, and having more events that cause that, where it's like, oh boy, so many things. Like, I can't say it, for example, right now, I couldn't use, like, Calgrantide as my main server because, well, it's going to be pop-locked. Like, it's going to be super pop-locked, and it's like, I probably can't even get my alternate, like, my guest campaign. That'll probably be pop-locked. So it's like, that's just fun, and it makes it exciting, and it shows what it is. On the flip side of that destroys their servers, it seems like, because you want to see lag. Play Cyrodiil at a pop lock campaign during an emp push on the last keep. It's like, I mean, you could probably draw pictures of what was happening faster than what's actually happening. So it is what it is, but it doesn't take away the fact that I find that a lot of fun. And it shows it to a lot of people that generally don't tap into that aspect of the game, for better or worse or whatever. However, since we're on the topic of this, we'll just streamline right into what I had for what I figured we would do for kind of like a discussion topic. Especially because, as I asked you before, I wasn't sure how much experience you have with Cyrodiil. So after the show releases and people hear this afterwards, would love to hear from anybody who has opinions on it, because I know it varies wildly with what I'm about to ask. PvP in an Elder Scrolls game, specifically ESO, because it's the first one, not the only one anymore, but the first one with a direct PvP component, is, how do you feel about the mix of PvE and PvP? Because when you get double AP for the event, it puts a lot of people in an environment they are not either expecting or are prepped for. And on the flip side, there are people who are in there, that's their game. Like, they don't bother with PvE beyond getting the gear they need for PvP. So it's assumed if you're in here, you're supposed to be fighting me, and I'm supposed to be fighting you. So it gets into the big question of town quests that people try to do for their boxes / things, or people trying to just explore the region to do whatever they're doing, collect sky shards, group delves, whatever. And then those of us who just trample those people and farm them for AP in some situations. So I'm curious what you, as well as everybody, kind of thinks on the subject of that whole thing.
So I really like that there is a mix of PvE with PvP for this event in particular, because I'm such a fish out of water with PvP. I just really suck at it. B, I have no tunes made for PvP because I'm pretty much exclusively PvE unless there's an event like this where I need to do something different. So I really love that I'm given that option to still like go in and do delves, and I found that more often than not, whenever I'm going to do those daily town quests, there's a lot of people who are there who are in the same situation I'm in, where they don't PvP, and we can kind of, through emotes, signal to each other like, hey, I'm a friend. It's okay. We're going to kill this boss, and then we're going to peacefully leave, and then we'll be okay. And it worked out really well last year. I'm hoping I'll get that lucky this year. There was one day where I was in the town and just repeatedly got murdered, so I guess the thing that I can say is what I'm most experienced with PvP is getting brutally murdered. This time, I think I'm going to play it a little bit differently. I'm going to run with a Lore Seekers group because they have upped their PvP presence in each alliance. So I'll be able to bring my Necromancer in, and I had a lot of fun with my Necro Healer in Cyrodiil. I only had to change up my gear. I was able to keep my rotation largely the same. Just I made some minor changes, but it wasn't anything that was revolutionary. I was able to stay alive a lot longer as a healer. So I kind of got my feet wet with PvP healing, so I'm hoping to actually use this event to learn more about PvP healing and to motivate me to go back into Cyrodiil even more than I already was. Just because I get so just one-track mind on PvE content that I have a tendency to forget Cyrodiil is a thing because I enjoy PvE so much.
I don't think you're alone in that.
And I don't know, last year, did Midyear Mayhem include Imperial City as well? Because I do really like Imperial City.
So you don't get double Telvar stones. That's just the Imperial City event itself. But flipping, like if you flip a district, because they don't have towns or whatever, if you flip a district or if you kill other players, if I remember correctly, you will still get double AP for doing it. Okay. But it's just direct contact with them specifically. Like you need to be engaged in the PvP AP based things for you to get the bonus. But like the Telvar thing, like the Telvar drops from any of that, I don't believe you get anything like that from the event.
I'll hold off on my Imperial City hype until the next Imperial City celebration event then, because I do really like that one. And that kind of brings me to something I was thinking while you were talking about not many people doing as much PvP content compared to PvE because there's just more PvE content to do. Right. It's been a long time since we've gotten a DLC focused on PvP. The last one I can think of was Imperial City, and that was the first one they came out with.
Yes,
and
it was the first DLC in the game.
And that same DLC, that same DLC also came with 2 PvE dungeons, and then Imperial City itself is a mix of PvE and PvP, and that's how they marketed that. So I wonder... I mean, I don't know if we'll hear anything about something like that in Vegas. It would be really, really cool, though, because I would like some new PvP content. Well, I guess Battlegrounds.
I was going to say, that was the only thing I was going to mention. Now, it's not... Because you're right, that's not really... I mean, there are maps, and obviously the mode itself took a lot of thought to just create. That wasn't just like oh yeah, this is fine, we've got these assets handy. I mean, that was very clearly a involved project to make Battlegrounds, and that was basically designed what it seems like due to popular demand more than anything else. I'm not sure that was... I have no idea what their game plan is, but it seemed to me like that kind of was a response to people wanting small-scale fights in a game that was not designed for. And because people wanted dueling, and we got dueling. And then it was kind of like, okay, dueling's good, but like, could we do something gameplay-wise, like arenas or whatever? So it's like maybe that was in their cards down the line, or maybe that was response. But at the same time, that was a pretty big addition, and I think it made a lot of people happy because that is definitely much more about how to prove you're good at things. Because now, I mean, it's been consistently no CP in Battlegrounds for a long time, so you're on even footing, and it's much more about your build and your play style. Whereas Cyrodiil, as you know, we kind of discussed it last episode, where it's like, it's designed around being just disaster. Like, you've got emperors, you've got people running around with Daedric artifacts and all sorts of stuff, murdering each other. It's not necessarily meant to be balanced. You're not going to get one-on-ones too often there, because that's kind of not the point.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Battlegrounds, wasn't that lumped in with the Morrowind expansion? It wasn't even its own thing.
Yeah, it was part of the chapter for a long time, so that was another thing.
Oh no, you froze. Okay, you're back.
Okay. Look, I'm totally not streaming a football game on another TV right now. Not breaking lore by doing that. So it was part of, you got the Warden, you got Battlegrounds, and then you got the Island of Ardenfell with that expansion. And then when that became outdated enough, they dropped it into the whole, well, now this is base game.
Right.
Which I thought was great. Well, base game buyable, which I thought was great, or sub, whatever. I really enjoy that model. What do you call it? So, sorry. That, I really liked how that was done, but when it was initially launched, and it was the same problem with Imperial City originally, because now Imperial City is also free. It's just straight free. You just download it for free from the Crown Store. One lesson that I feel they learned, yes, you can kind of divide PvE content. You cannot divide PvP content.
Yeah.
That is a death sentence to whatever you're adding. Because the queues prior to Battlegrounds just being part of base game, people joke about like, oh, the group finder's broken. Yeah, okay, group finder's broken. Group finder wasn't as broken, and it was way worse when there was just like a pool of 40,000 people, maybe at peak times, all playing Battlegrounds that also then had that specific expansion. Because it wasn't even like you could be subbed and have it. You just didn't have Battlegrounds if you didn't buy Morrowind. So, yeah. Same thing with Imperial City. It's like you need other players to play that content. So, moving them out of the get as many people in here as possible is not a good move. And I think they've recognized that since any and all PvP content is now free. So, like 100% of it. So that, I think they've recognized that as well. The only problem with Imperial City is it's kind of too late. At least Battlegrounds, that's a thing a lot of people like. And they're exposed to it. And it's not quite as involved as trying to go into Imperial City, set up a group, and blah, 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 blah. But if they do any more PvP stuff, it really needs to come out and just be part of the game, even if it's just like, here's your base game patch. Also, there's this PvE stuff you can purchase. They've got to make sure that that's not included with the purchase stuff. Otherwise, I think they're just doing what they did before, which is kind of sending it out to, yeah, this is a great thing, but so little of your community is probably going to experience it when it's fresh, and then you're just going to have a trickle effect of people getting it off and on, which is not what you want for that type of content.
Especially considering that, I know at least, maybe it's because I'm in guilds who primarily PvE, but there's just so many more people in the Elder Scrolls community who see more PvE focus because of the nature of Elder Scrolls being so story-based.
Oh, yeah.
That a lot of us are into the questing and the dungeons and the dungeon quests and all of that good stuff, that we just kind of think of PvE as a separate little awesome thing that we can get into when we finish all this other stuff. And that's always been my problem, where it's like, yeah, once I get bored with all these dungeons, then I'll jump into PvP, and then they release another dungeon. It's like, well, I'm doing this now, and now I need to get this new set, and then I just never end up over in PvP.
Not to mention the fact that the content cycle on releases for this game is mind-boggling.
Yeah.
So being like, yeah, no, I'll get to PvP once we're done with PvE stuff, followed by like, oh, here's your dungeon pack. Oh, here's your chapter. Okay, just finished. No, new dungeon pack. Oh, here's your new area. It's like, okay, yeah, good luck ever getting into PvP for long enough to understand what you're doing if you don't just dedicate time to it.
Now, granted, I'm not complaining about the release cycle, but there's just so much PvE content coming out that it is hard for me to just say, I'm dedicating X amount of time to PvP because I'm just so into the PvE stuff, and they've executed that overall so well that I'm hooked on that to the point where it's like, okay, I have to drag myself into PvP, and it's only fun if I'm with a group, because if I'm by myself, I get very confused, and then I just die immediately because you have people who are jumping up and down, and I can't aim at you, and I don't know what I'm doing, and I don't do damage anyway because I'm a healer, and it just gets very confusing for a while.
Yeah. And the other thing too is, to a degree, because I will vouch for this. I'll use stupid builds all the time. It's inevitable. Anytime people watch me in PvP, whether it's because I'm dared to do it or because I'm just not paying attention, as happened during the Extra Life stream where I was wearing ornate gear. I don't use meta builds. I don't really build myself. I have things that I do for PvP, but at no point do I like to pretend that, like, oh, I'm good at PvP or whatever. I'm a tank. First of all, that's a weird thing to do in Cyrodiil, because I'm like, I'm just going to take more damage and just be obnoxious, which is my goal. I just like to be obnoxious so that my friends who DPS can swoop in and murder them. I get assist points, but it's like I damage and I run around and I actually play healer quite a bit. And I will fight back, and I have my achievements for whatever it is, 10 million damage done or whatever, but that's just because I played a lot, not because I'm efficient at it. Also, being Emperor, you just do crazy damage, so that probably just cheesed most of it. But not being geared at all for PvP and going up against people that are, or that at least know what they're doing, because that's what I at least know what I'm doing in PvP, so I at least know how to exploit stuff in PvP. And that's a big difference for when people are brand new. If you go in there and you have, no impen gear, and obviously you're not going to be putting your champion points into critical resistance because the bots can't crit us, but people can. And somebody dive bombs in like a lunatic and crits you for more health than you have, you're vaporized into a little pile of dust before you even know what's happening. That can be pretty rough, to say the least. And that's just it. It can be jarring to get used to, especially because you're so used to being told, I can't die. Like, if I'm dying, I'm failing. Well, in PvP, everybody dies. No matter how good you are, everybody dies. You'll get into scenarios that are way beyond your means. You'll get jumped. I mean, as durable as I am, because that's kind of my thing, is like, oh, I'm just super durable. I'm immune to crits. Well, I'm not immune to crits, but I take a minimal crit damage. I'm the person, I will go up to the front line when we're sieging a keep, because I'm like, I'll just stand in all these oil things. And the PvP guild that I used to be with, a lot of people would just assume that's how you play. And our officers need to be like, don't follow him. He's a moron and he's trying to draw them out. Like, that's the point of him. He's not going to kill anyone. He's a distraction for us to get kills. But people would follow up. And, I mean, I look like everybody else or whatever. And it's like, they're dumping oils on me that aren't critting me. And they're doing minimal damage. And I'm putting up a siege shield to minimize damage even more. And I've got teammates running up and they're just getting melted instantly. I'm like, no, you can't just do that. Like, I'm built for this. It's not that I'm special or anything like that. It was just that's my design. And the only thing that I will say to people, it's not as good if you are support, because I know you're a healer, but healing, you can do a lot with healing in PvP, and a good healer can keep a squad up really well. You're probably just as useful, if not more useful, than DPS. I'm kind of a walking distraction and not much more. But if you are a damage dealer and you don't mind being squishy, or you're used to being squishy, and you are not experienced with PvP, you can at least have an impact on things. Because if you have a crit build, for example, that will work against other people. Now, when you go up against people who really know what they're doing, that's going to show, because there's a skill ceiling to it. But the one thing that's fun about this event, which I always try to coax people in who don't like to do it, there's a lot of people who don't know what they're doing. Cyrodiil's a mess during this. Yeah, but it's like, if you have all three alliances where, say, 15% of all the people on your population side are PvPers, and you have 85% of people who are just like, I'm here for the event, they, each side's going to have that. So those people can just be bumbling into each other. You'll scoop up kills and stuff like that against each other. Just learn the names that you need to avoid because they're threats. And you can still have a fun time even if PvP is not your thing. Get yourself into like the hordes, because there's no controlling it. Even when people don't like Zergs, there are Zergs during this event, and it's just walls of people slamming into each other. Just kind of enjoy the chaos. It can be really fun. And I definitely recommend give it a try. If it's not usually your thing, the only thing I'm personally not a fan of, and you actually had mentioned it earlier, where you like to go to the towns and you get some people. If you have a big enough group, numbers can definitely help against single gankers, like people who will just Nightblade in, they'll stealth in, and they'll just blast you for a ton of damage. A lot of times people will sit and wait at towns for people to do questing and then just try to kill the questers.
That's not nice.
I don't care for that. I mean, you are in a war zone, and I get it. And it doesn't ever bother me when people are just like kind of in the way of a train of people. Like it is what it is. You know kind of what you're in for. The only thing, and I was actually having a discussion on Twitter earlier, which I always love having real discussions instead of people just shouting at each other, which this was, which is what I loved about it, was you don't want to just ignore, like, from the perspective of a PvPer, you don't want to let people just roam around, take towns, build up a force, and then, like, if you try to do something and say one person's attacks you, okay, well, that's fine. You'd beat them in a one-on-one or whatever. But unfortunately, you've been letting all these questers build up, and now there's 30 questers or something like that, and they see a fight going on. They will pig pile in and then just destroy you, because it's hard to beat a 30-on-1, even if the 30 people don't know what they're doing. That one guy's going to be in trouble. Like, so just be weary if you're concerned about it, and try not to get too frustrated. The only people that are kind of scummy are people who specifically hunt people not trying to fight back. That, to me, I was like, no, you don't want to fight. You want to pick on people who don't want to fight back, because I don't know if they're clips or they've just been things I posted over the years, but we've done plenty of streams where people will try to gank people in my party that I'm just running with, because a lot of them are PvEers or whatever. And I always, because I'm a scumbag, I take off any PvP-related title, because most people can't read your rank. So I'll put on something like Master Angler so everybody thinks I'm a slob. And they'll hopefully pick on me before the PvE years, because I don't care if I die. It doesn't matter. And it takes a while to kill me, so I try to draw them away from the rest of the people. But, yeah, I don't like when people just pick on the PvEers specifically. Go for people who want to fight back. At least try. If you have no other targets, I mean, it is what it is. But yeah, you're not, I guess how can I put this? From the perspective of somebody who likes PvP, making PvP as unappealing to new players as possible does not entice them to come back so you can kill them later. Like if you just grief everybody, they're not going to want to come back. And we already have population problems.
And the coolest experience for me last Midyear Mayhem event was whenever I was in a delve and there was a Nord and I was in the Dominion, and I immediately sheathed my weapon and started jumping. The other person jumped back. We were waiting on a boss to spawn to get the AP. And so then I started playing my lute. They started doing a little dance. And then a DC person came up and started playing drums. And we just all waited there. It was fantastic. None of us got hurt. I think a couple of us got caught in the crosshairs of some AoE damage while we were fighting the boss. But then as soon as the boss was dead, we all waved goodbye. And then we went our separate ways without killing each other. Because we were obviously just there to do that delve. So I really appreciated that there were people in there that were just so nice to people who just that wasn't their thing. This year I'm probably going to do things a little bit different. I do want to get in the middle of a Zerg and bring my Necromancer in to really see how good this group res can be in PvP, because I got a little taste of that recently. and it was insane, and I would like to try to use this event to get a taste of PvP, to see how fun it can be running with a big group, and see if this is something that I do want to start devoting more time to. So it may just convince me this year, so we're gonna see.
And on that note, PvP is also not for everybody. So if you're just looking for AP and don't care how you do, you can obviously Zerg Surf if you have a decent Zerg. The other thing is you get more points the better you do team-wise, but Battlegrounds has great payouts if you're just trying to, because a lot of people I know like to just get the skill lines. Like, that's why a lot of people mess around with it, which I get, because if it's not your thing, it's not your thing, you know. But even if you are hot trash and just get ruffle stomped every game and don't want to build new gear or don't even really want to learn what you're doing, do Battlegrounds. Your team probably won't like you, so maybe mute your chat if you're not with 4 people or 3 people that you're friends with, because you're probably not going to want to hear what people are going to say if you're 0-60 or something like that. But
if you're me.
yeah. But the thing is, even losing, you get a decent amount of AP in that. So that's another way. And at least in that situation, you can go in with 3 friends. And worst case scenario, you guys get crushed. You come in third. You get a bunch of AP. You basically get, not to be mean, but you get pity points. You get your showing up today points, and it can totally like add up. And at least get you your skill lines if that's all you're into. But no, I appreciate your perspective on this too. Just because, like I said, since I play everything, I understand both sides. Sometimes with the like, I just want a quest or I just want to do this, and it's like, oh boy, that's not going to go great right now. But then on the flip side, I'm like, well, you know, you're in the zone that's designed for this, and mixed results on whether people like that or not. But I don't know. Hopefully I get to see 2 of these a year.
That would be really awesome.
Because I would love that.
If we get our Morningstar Madness and Midyear Mayhem, that would be awesome.
Yep. And hopefully PvP gets a little more love with this coming year, because they have, you know, they're addressing a lot of things performance-wise and stuff like that. And I know a lot of PvPers would be pleased with just performance improvements, which is clearly a beast of itself to try to conquer or whatever. But yeah, I definitely excited for the event. And even if it's not your thing, you know, give it a try. If it's not for you, no big deal. You've got plenty more events coming on the horizon, plus plenty more content. But yeah, it could at least be worth a try, and then you can decide from there what you like. But if you're not built for it, that doesn't mean you're going to be totally useless. You'd probably just be squishy.
See, I just hang back and kind of let my group do the work, and then whenever they die, I just bring them back, and that's my job. I do have the Bone Totem move that will actually fear enemies, and I've noticed that fearing people seems to be nice, because I know whenever I'm in PvP, even briefly, whenever I get feared, I'm just dead.
Yeah, Nightblades. Yeah, that's lovely. So, we're not going to get into my salt on Nightblades, because there's lots of different things. The Nightblade CCs gives me a twitch, so...
I actually made a Nightblade, and I was like, I'm going to make this my PvP tune. I'm going to look up PvP builds, and I'm going to watch all these videos. And I was like, you know what? I don't think I like Nightblades for myself. I'm not understanding the Stand Blade. I don't do much damage, and I also really suck at PvP, so I'm going to go back to questing on my Necromancer.
All right. Well, let's see. What else? That was that. Well, moving on. How long have we been actually doing this? Wow, okay.
43 minutes and 58 seconds.
Yeah, we can make a show out of nothing.
We've got it.
Nailed it. All right. Here's my next thing. Have you been up to anything? Do you have any tales for us this week?
I do. So yesterday was a big night for me. I actually got my first clear of Vet Moongrave Fane. I originally pugged it, but we were having difficulties with the pug.
Really? Difficulties on Moongrave Fane?
No, not Moongrave
Fane. Who would have thought?
I'm sorry, I lied to you. It was Moonhunter Keep. That's what it was. The other M1.
That's not really better. That's not better for pugs.
I think I would have had more luck on Moongrave Fane, honestly, because I know that one better.
Yeah, and the wizard puzzle alone. Simon says pugs can't figure out what colors and symbols are.
So the issue, we didn't even make it that far with the pug group. We made it to the white werewolf, whose name escapes me at the moment.
In the courtyard?
Yes.
With the wardens that pop up and...
Yes.
Yep, okay.
There was a severe lack of interrupt, and I also did not know I could dodge the direwolf lunge, and the direwolves just really, really liked me for some reason. So I was getting one-shotted by the direwolves. I was also the only one for a while interrupting the boss whenever she would do the pounce attack. So it was just a hot mess. And eventually I just started, I was streaming, so I just yelled at Twitch. I was like, please anyone save me. Please help me get through this, because I've been doing this for hours now, and we're not getting any better, because 2 of them dropped. I was like, I can either sit in a queue for a while and hope I get better luck next time, or somebody can volunteer. And so I had a couple volunteers. One of them's in a guild with me, Gypsy Sun. He's a really good DPS. And there was another person who was from my Twitch chat who volunteered to tank it. And then we kept the other DPS who was a pug, because they were doing okay. And they were like learning from each death, and it was going well. So then we wiped a few more times on the White Wolf boss. And then from there it was smooth sailing. We only took like 2 or 3 tries at the alchemist guy, or the archivist.
Okay.
I don't know. So the alchemist, I keep calling him an alchemist. The archivist actually went really, really smoothly by comparison. And then when we go to the last boss and someone reads the scroll and we're like, why?
Oh, wow. Straight into hard mode.
We got Vicosa down to about 75% before we wiped, and then we decided, you know what, let's just clear this, because we're all really tired, because it's like almost 1 a.m. and we would like to sleep tonight.
That hard mode is rough.
That's what I noticed. We didn't even get down very far, and it was just so much damage everywhere. It was really, really hard. My insta-res was being used to the max, but I couldn't keep ultimate up enough fast enough to really make too much of a difference with it. So we did beat it pretty quickly on non-hard mode after that. And so I finally have that Vicosa bus to put up in my house as soon as I remember to do it. Probably as soon as the podcast is over, since I'm standing in my house now. So I was really happy to do that. Then tonight I actually did a whole bunch of Sky Shard hunting, because I have a severe lack of skill points in another one of my toons, and I have discovered that I just don't understand how maps work, apparently, because I kept running in the opposite direction where the Sky Shard actually was. I had a mini map and my main map and a Sky Shard add-on to tell me exactly where to go, and I was going to ask,
you have like an add-on and a map to like go with, and it's still not... All right.
I had 2 maps and add-ons. I had 2 maps and 2 add-ons for Sky Shards, and I just went the wrong way, and it was hilarious. And I am just a hot mess with maps. I don't really remember what I did Wednesday, which tells me it was another chill night where I do remember. I brought a new player, Avi. We helped her figure out how to buy her first house in game. And we just went on a little tour of a lot of the available houses, and we did like a cost-benefit analysis of a lot of the cheaper houses to figure out which one was the best bargain, and that was a lot of fun. She ended up going with the Cyrodiilic Jungle House because she loved the atmosphere of the outside, but for me personally, I think the best bargain home for a new player who doesn't want to spend crowns and just wants to spend in-game gold is Autumn's Gate in the Rift. It has a sizable inside as far as the classic homes go, or staple homes, and then the courtyard is a good size, and it's in the Rift, which is just absolutely gorgeous and has that nice fall feel.
Yep.
And that's about it for me this week. It was a pretty chill week other than last night with Moonhunter Keep.
That's still pretty solid. See, usually I'm the rambly one, and not that was rambly, but like you actually had things to say. More so as usually I end up being the one kind of rambling on with the things I've done, but mine is substantially smaller than usual this week because of all of the holiday stuff, and haven't had as much game time. So I do have a few things. Unfortunately, I didn't get to start any more of Arena, which makes me sad because I actually really have a sick desire to like get started on that game, but I did not have any time for that because of New Year's in real life and all this stuff. So I actually was only around for maybe 2 days. So I did not get to start Arena. However, I'm going to be able to focus more on actually starting Arena pretty soon because of 2 other side effects. I have 1 quest left in the Aldmeri Dominion. Period. Like the whole thing. Meaning
nice.
I will be totally done with all content to date in the Elder Scrolls Online. I'll be able to I will be able to say that I'm technically, just like we were making joking reference to earlier about like how do you ever keep up with that? Well, 5 years later, I finally caught up with it, and I should be at. There's plenty of little side scrappy challenges and stuff like that, like time trials for everything. What a God Slayer, I think, that have like 4 teams in the world have or whatever. But my goal for a long time has been to be content complete on everything, on at least vet difficulty. So once I do this last, what do you call it? The last AD quest, which is a side quest. I don't know what it is. I just was in an arena for a while, was the last thing I was doing. It's like this fighting arena thing where you have to just take control. Whatever. Everybody died. I just like murdered everybody. It wasn't really story intensive. Everybody's like, oh, you move up the ranks. And moral of the story, I killed everyone.
Such a nice person.
Yeah, it was a great storyline, quelling the AD.
Ouch.
The other thing that I wanted to bring up, because I posted it the other day, which was kind of strange, and some people have told me it's a farming method. So in Reaper's March, there's like a gambler's den, kind of like in this ravine, and this Khajiit named Tand, I believe it is, kind of gets indebted, and his boyfriend or husband wants to get him back, and he's lost in the camp. Moral of the story, okay, it's a little side quest about getting him back, breaking him out, finding what's going on there, and stuff like that. That wasn't the part that I thought was peculiar. The part that was peculiar was apparently, and I've heard from, in fact, Hazard is in chat, who just joined, mentioned that his guild does it as well. It's a guild farming spot where they herd all of the gamblers into a pile and murder them.
Oh my, I think I saw this tweet. I think I know what you're talking about.
I was just taking pictures around the camp. I mean, it was... It was like a giant open grave. So the reason I feel that this is worth bringing up, just in my tales, is because I went in, and when I was walking down the ravine, I actually posted the pictures in order of me arriving. Because when I showed up, there were like 8 or 10 bodies just in the waterway under a bridge. And I'm like, oh man, is there a plague here? Is there like an assault? And I go into the camp, and there's just bodies everywhere. And there are no NPCs. It is just a giant graveyard. And I'm like, wow, this is intense. So it's like, what the hell happened here? So I'm looking around, and I'm trying to find anything. I still don't see anything. And I'm like, okay, where's the NPCs? I don't see a quest marker. I was like, what is this place? Like, this has got to be a Nahat and Flu thing or something like that. And then I started noticing that all the corpses weren't just, like, inanimate objects. All of them were labeled gambler, and they all had 0% health. And I'm like, wait, these are individual models. So I start looking around, and they're just all gambler. Gambler. It's just, and there's just waves of corpses everywhere. And I'm like, what is happening? And then coming down one of the side paths, there is this Templar who is Templar jabbing into a horde of like 30 NPCs with one single Aldmeri guard just yelling, stop, 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 and like trying to like do the Talons thing on him. And I'm like, these are all supposed to be NPCs that are alive. This is not the quest. So he murders all of them. I continue on in, and I find the quest giver like up the hill, and they're like, oh, this is, whatever. This is our gambling ring. And I'm like, this quest, if I was one of those immersion people, this quest is ruined. Because I think there's like a Khajiit genocide going on, and it turns out that they are just, it's a farming spot in the middle of like a quest. So it had absolutely nothing to do with anything on the story. The gambling ring, you can do the gambling ring. There's a race thing. You can bypass the other one. You find out, why he got imprisoned, and maybe it's a slave trade thing. And I was like, oh, none of that had anything to do with this. And I thought this was a totally different story just because I walked in thinking like, oh my God, it's a war scene. And it's totally not a war scene. It was supposed to be a relatively passive thing up until the very end. So I just thought it was pretty funny. And apparently it's a thing, I've been told. Had no idea. But that made that quest different than I think it was intended.
Well, considering they're all gamblers, the tiny little part of me, if it wasn't like a known farming thing, I'd be like, wow, someone's salty about not being able to make it to Vegas for the announcement.
Yeah, all valid point as well. So yeah, I don't know what my last quest is. I am probably going to finish it tomorrow before football, I assume, so that I can be technically up to date. The other thing that I've done, which I think there's 6 chapters if I'm not totally mistaken, but I have also been working on the Elder Scrolls Legends. The reason I got to get some time in this is because, like I said, I was away for a wedding and some other various things over the New Year. So my phone made a useful distraction when I wasn't doing anything else. And I've almost made it through the Isles of Madness, which is the final expansion that they officially... the Jaws of Oblivion, I guess, was the final thing, but that wasn't a quest. It was just a deck of cards. So I'm going through just to complete all the stories in that, and see if I can just backpack all of the cards I have, because it gives you a little percentage meter. And this is because I'm a completionist and I'm mildly insane, as we've discussed.
Shadow Key.
Yeah, Shadow Key, yeah. Being excited about playing Arena soon. So I want to complete all the quests, obviously, so that I can say that, I did that and everything. But because they have little percentage bars on, this much core deck, you have this many legendaries, this many epics, this many rares, this many commons, I think is the qualifications for them. And then, there's the Dark Brotherhood one, and then there's the... Clockwork City one, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I want all of my bars to say 100%. So I want to have every card, just at least one of them. So that's my end goal, is to finish the story and see if I can use all my free junk that I never spend in game to see if I can just buy every single one of those things. But I'm almost done with the story 2 Legends, so it'll be sad to see that go. And actually, Gypsy Sun says he has 100% collection. Perfect. I'm not alone. That makes me feel much better. Thank you for that. Now I feel much more at ease. So I would like to get my collection to be 100% and finish it, because I'm not really that great at cards. I'm pretty middling. I learned how to play for that, as I've mentioned before. So I don't know. With the game not really getting more added to it, I'll just kind of play it for fun against people and stuff like that. But it's kind of nice for a games as a service. I don't want Legends to go away, and I hope it stays active for a long time in maintenance mode. But it's kind of nice to have an end destination, at least for my gameplay time. Similar to ESO, obviously everything's still coming out, like Skyrim's coming out. It's nice to just briefly be like, yes, I have done all of the things for now. Bring on Skyrim, okay, now we're right back. You know what I mean? Like, every now and then getting a completion of like, yes, I am done for a little while, even if it's just, I finally don't have a goal or something like that.
I totally get that. So I've never actually 100, like, I'm not like you, I haven't done all of the quests in ESO, and then I really suck at Legends, so the only time I really jumped into Legends was whenever they were giving out the Doom Wolf mount, because I didn't have it on PC. So,
yes. Dark Brotherhood was that one. Yep.
Right. So they were giving that out for free with Legends a while back. So I did the 3 matches that I needed to do, or whatever it was, to get that.
That's right. I forgot they did another promotion for that, actually, because funny you say that, I forgot. It came out with Dark Brotherhood as the first expansion, and I didn't play on PC, so I was like, what do I do with this thing? So I actually gave it away on Tales before I was on Tales.
Oh, wow.
We were really going far back. And then I forgot it became a thing later on, like you said, with the, like, would you have to play 3 games, you said? Yeah,
and so I had a friend who also didn't play Legends, so we just played each other a few times, and it worked out great. I think we just played a total of 6 matches, and that was like our way of trying to figure out how the game worked, as well as like we both got the mount. So it was really, really fun. That being said, I really enjoy Elder Scrolls. I really thought liked how there was a story element to it, but whenever I'm like gaming on my phone, if I were gonna do a card game, I tend to do Gwent instead. But even that, I haven't made the time for. So I played Gwent like crazy in Witcher 3, and then I played a little bit during beta, and I just got it on iOS, but I have yet to play through a single match outside of the tutorial. So I'm just really bad at keeping up with card games on my phone or iPad for some reason. I don't know why, because in the game, as the side quest with Witcher 3 and everything, I was all about Gwent, and the game was like Gwent with a side quest of the story. But with Legends, it was just really hard for me to get into, because it was another thing like the standalone Gwent, where it's like, I'd rather be playing this other thing. Sure. But I really enjoyed the card art. I thought it was cool that they had a storyline for it, so I don't have any complaints about it. It's just not something that I play. Yeah.
No, I totally get that. And that is actually all I've managed to accomplish this week. Like I said, I've been MIA a decent bit, so not so much on my end. And actually, for a show where there wasn't much news, we definitely didn't ad-lib and slap this together in, like, I don't know, 15 minutes prior to going live.
Nobody would have known. The people who are listening... They won't know that anything's different other than the lack of arc. They won't see that we're sitting at a table with Kinara over here, who's snuck into my house.
And we're on your stream, and I made reference to it being a total panic show a couple times. Yeah, no, I pulled it off like nobody will ever know. Smooth criminal here.
That song's going to be stuck in my head the rest of the night. Thank you.
You're welcome. We could start getting coin for your Witcher, and just ruin everybody who's going to listen to this. Good luck, people who are now listening and now hearing that instead of my voice. So,
deep breaths. I can get through this.
Yep. Deep cleansing breaths. So why don't you let everyone know where they can find you, other than on your current Twitch channel?
I was about to say, well, people have already kind of found me, but if you're listening to the audio version of this podcast, you can find me at twitch.tv/HyperPixieGaming, and you can also find me on Twitter at HyperPixieGames. I'm HyperPixieGaming on Instagram and HyperPixie on Facebook as well.
Very efficient. I am pretty much LotusOfDoom anywhere. In-game, on Twitter, which is where I usually interact the most. Anywhere else. Hello to everybody who I'm friends with, who's hovering in Pixie's chat currently. What do you call it? But yeah, so if you ever need to get a hold of me, I'm pretty much LotusOfDoom everywhere. And hopefully this was at least somewhat smooth enough. We really are going to try to stick with keeping a solid schedule. We've we know, we appreciate how much all of you support us and everything we do with Tales of Tamriel. We owe you guys a lot, so it means a lot to us. It's a lot of fun for us to do, but, we're glad that it entertains as well as just provides us fun on our end. So one of the big goals that we had was to be a little more consistent, just because, as we've mentioned before, it can be tricky to pull this off sometimes with time difference and real life and everything like that. So hopefully with our kind of rotating setup, we can keep a little show for you at bare minimum. I mean, we probably won't always have the 3.5 hour epics that we had last week, which was we got great response from, so I'm super glad everybody enjoyed that we've heard from. But yikes, that was long. That was a ton of fun. That reminded me, before I was on the show, of some of the year one things with Ag and everybody carrying on the show, and they would be 3-4 hour episodes. So it was like that was kind of fun to do. We will also hopefully from time to time be able to do something like that and have a different voice come to join the show and kind of give a different perspective, at least when it's relevant to the topic at hand. So many of people in the community that do so many different and unique things that add a lot. So also something else we're hoping to stick with, which right before we do our final thought and the closing, which if we, as much as we like to joke about Ark trying to rifle that off, and prior to that, Ag could do it in his sleep. I've never recited this, so I'm going to butcher this. But prior to us doing that, I figured I would mention one thing to anybody who happens to be listening, and specifically if you listen on iTunes or Apple Podcasts or whatever Apple generic product name that produces podcasts, because it keeps changing, the purple one, that thing. If you use that, we would greatly appreciate if you happen to have the time and could toss us a 5-star review. Generally, this stuff doesn't really matter too much to us. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we appreciate knowing you guys enjoy it, but you saying you enjoy it, it makes us happy enough. So the reason I'm mentioning this is, as I've been messing around with algorithms and stuff like that, just learning on my own time, as we're trying to sort of get ourselves back on like a nice consistent track for everybody, it would be super awesome to have it put us more consistently in the algorithm of showing up. So you don't need to really say anything if you don't want to. But 5-star reviews actually bump you up the charts and just happen to make you more visible. So I figured I would just mention, if you get the time, we would greatly appreciate it if you could toss us a 5-star review. If not, no worries. If you don't use Apple thingy, no worries. But sometimes people just don't realize that it does matter. So I figured we hadn't really mentioned it with attention base to it in a while, so I figured I would. And if you would like to actually leave us a message on it, we can shout you out. Otherwise, it just doesn't show us who does what. That was so fun. That is... And on that note, Gypsy Sun wins the chat with a toss of 5 to your podcast, Oh Valley of Plenty. Congratulations, you win. Thank you for that. That is incredible. Oh man, sorry, that threw me off. That was really good.
As soon as I saw that popped up, I was like, oh no.
Yep, that was incredible, especially after the previous joke. But yeah, so that's the only thing I figured I would mention. But yeah, so if you would like to say something, we'll be happy to shout you out. Otherwise, again, no worries. We won't be going anywhere anyways. And yeah, so on that note, you can follow everything we do over at DungeonCrawlerNetwork.com. There you can find links to all of our social media, including Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. Be sure to check out our Patreon at patreon.com/. Is that a backslash or a forward slash?
Forward slash.
All right, /Dungeon Crawler Network. If you want to support the show and consider us, then there's the 5-star review thing that we super speed through because it's usually not a focus. But it does help us, and it lets everyone know that we say real words, and sometimes they matter. And we would like to thank you all for joining us on this episode of Tales of Tamriel, and we will see you all next time. Have a great night, everybody.
Bye!
When Akatosh slew Lorcan, he ripped his heart right out. He hurled it across Tamriel, and the heart was heard to shout, red diamond, the heart and soul of men. Red diamond, protect us till the end. The laughing heart sprayed blood afar, a gout on Seer it fell, and like a dart shot to its mark down in an alien well. Magicka fused the Lorcan blood to crystal red and strong. Then wild elves cut and polished it down to Chimel at a ball. Red diamond, the heart and soul of men. Red diamond, protect us till the end. When elves lost Nirn to men, Akatosh gave the stone to Saint Alesh in token of her right to sit the throne. Red diamond, the heart and soul of men. Red diamond, protect us till the end. Red diamond, protect us till the end.